So hi everyone, again I'm Karin and I'll start with sharing my faith journey. Starts really before even putting a name to a religion, is my relationship with God. And that's something that I have really revered since I was a kid. I had certain life experiences as a child that was difficult, and so sort of developing a relationship and connection with a higher power was incredibly important and comforting to know that there is this higher power that creates harmony in the universe. And I grew up, so that's the beginning and the end to my sort of spiritual journey in the sense of what truly matters. So I grew up in a Muslim family. My family immigrated, my dad and my mom immigrated here to the United States from Bangladesh in the 70s. And I was born and raised in New York City, in Queens, Flushing, Queens to be exact, where Nanny Fine is from, if anyone watches The Nanny. So I grew up in Flushing, Queens, if you've ever read anything about Queens or been to Queens, it's incredibly diverse. There's people from all over the world. Parts of Queens you'll see signs only in like one language other than English. I grew up particularly in the part of Flushing that was mostly Korean and Chinese immigrants. I went to high school in a part of town that was Orthodox Jewish. I think it's East Flushing, the directions are off, but it was Orthodox Jewish, so after school, we would go and hang out at the Jewish bakeries and delis, mostly because I keep halal, so I only eat, so that's like the Muslim version of kosher. And so I eat also kosher food, and so that was like an incredibly accessible part of the community for me, and how that's the environment I grew up in, just being in connection and community with all these different groups. So anyway, I grew up in a pretty conservative family, and I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I loved, my parents were not very religious when they first moved to America. They grew up in mostly majority Muslim country, Bangladesh. So Islam was just a part of who they were. It wasn't a very big part of who they were. When they came to America and started having kids, they were like, well, it's pretty important to us now because we want to make sure that our children have strong moral compasses, and for them, Islam provided that. And so my two brothers and I, one older, one younger, we went to public schools until high school, and every day after school, in elementary school, high school, we would go to Quran classes in elementary schools to study the Quran, to learn Arabic. And on the weekends, we would go to our mosque to study Islam in general, the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Islamic history, interpretations of the Quran. So there's like a lot of studying that was involved in my childhood. So I knew a lot. Like the facts were in my mind, and from a young age, and I loved studying. I loved studying the faith and being in a community where, going to public school, I was with all kinds of kids all the time. And in the 4th grade, I started wearing hijab. And so it's pretty clear that I was Muslim from a young age. And in New York, it was like pretty easy to be Muslim as a kid until 9/11 changed a lot of things. 9/11 was at a time I was in middle school in the 7th grade. And when it happened, I remember I was in class, and it was like the first period, like homeroom, I think it was called, homeroom. And we were sitting in class, and the school just kind of shut down. Everyone was silent. TVs turned on, we had these TVs, and oh my gosh, that was just 5 minutes. Wow. And and there was a girl in my class whose mom worked at the towers, and everyone was just tense and worried and not sure what was going on. And the poor girl, Wendy, we were like, what's going on? We don't know what's going on with her family. And it's her mom, and she's crying, and the teacher's trying to figure out if she can get any more information about this girl's mom. It turned out she was okay, but that day changed a lot. It was a period of huge grief for our community, and I mean, like New York City, the whole country. But it's an interesting time because what I realized was it was hard to grieve as a Muslim. I felt I wasn't allowed to grieve because at the same time as it was something terrible was happening in my hometown. As much as I felt as if like I needed to grieve, I couldn't because I was part of the people who did it, right? Or identified as such. And so it created a lot of confusion in me in terms of my identity, a lot of fear also of going back to school the next day. Things changed really quickly for my community. And for my Muslim community, the Muslim community was like not sure how to respond to things. There's a part of the people who attacked the towers and were the perpetrators of 9/11 were Muslim, and so it kind of became like, oh well, Muslims are suspect in all these things going on. And so being a practicing Muslim, invisibly maybe looking the same in some ways, feature-wise, to the perpetrators of such an attack, became confusing for everyone. I think there was an element of fear. Who do we trust? And it created a lot of tension within our country, as I'm sure you know. And so as in high school, sort of dealing with what it meant to be Muslim, continuing to study and love my own community, my own tradition, but at the same time there was this new perception of what it means to be Muslim, and constantly this feeling as if I needed to defend my faith and my tradition. And so I became really angry, and in many ways, I think my drive for social justice started at that age because I was like, this is not fair, and fairness to me is important. I don't know if you guys are into astrology, but I'm a Libra, and Libras care a lot about equality, and so anyway, at that age. I just felt a lot of anger, and I felt like things were not fair, and started to think about my situation and my community situation with all the different groups in our history that have felt the same way, have been treated the same way, and really identified with that, and started to explore and express a lot of that through spoken word poetry. So I became really interested in expressing through poetry and doing it in a format called spoken word, which is really powerful. I don't do it anymore, so please don't ask me to do something. But I do still write. It's really fun. And I'll stop at that for now.